Hello and welcome to another Wednesday Wandering with me, Kate Field, and I'm doing a bit of crochet because in this evening's Wednesday Wandering I'm going to be talking about how knitting and crochet can be used as a meditation tool, and I just feel that they're really underrated. What do you think? Are you ready? Let's go. So it's an interesting thing that when we think about meditation, we can all go a little bit ethereal and think that we need to be in a very calm place and with soft music and candles and just all of this. But in reality, that is just not the case, is it? It just isn't. And I find that using craft can really help me to relax. Now, I found this in particular because of some crisis, as is often the case, isn't it? And when I became very ill and I had to stop, and I am not very good at sitting still. I'm actually rubbish at sitting still. And one of the things that really helped me was getting my crochet and my knitting and just sitting down and doing stitch after stitch after stitch. Now, because of the state that my mind was in at the time, I found that I was getting very frustrated with my painting and my drawing and things like that, and that wasn't happening, and my writing wasn't happening. But the repeated action of a crochet stitch or a knitting stitch really helped. And it didn't matter whether I was making something, designing something, creating something, just the action of that repetitive stitch. And ever since then, it has become an absolute part of my life, especially in the winter. Autumn and the winter and the early spring is when I tend to do a lot of my yarn crafts, and I love all yarn crafts, and I'm always learning something new. I learned to knit when I was little. My mum taught me how to knit, but I didn't learn crochet until my middle age. And my dear friend Susan Blanford, who I have known for 30 years, she taught me how to knit. She taught me how to crochet. She is a phenomenal crochet artist, and I'll put a link to her work below. And she came to college where I was teaching textiles to teach my students how to crochet as part of the textiles course, because I really wanted to incorporate crochet into that. And so I learned how to crochet, and I became a bit of an addict, actually. And I find that with crochet, I will show you these. I recently went to Canada, and I don't fly very well. Airports make me feel quite anxious, and I love it when I'm there. But the actual kind of getting to places is not good. And I bought some absolutely gorgeous yarn. These colours are lovely, aren't they? How lovely are these? And so while in the airport, just sort of waiting for everything, I thought I would just knit squares. And so there was no pattern. So I ended up knitting, just knitting squares. And just that kind of process of crochet and knitting was just wonderful. It was just so lovely. So with knitting, obviously you have your 2 needles, and it's that kind of clicking that I like that. It's that repetitive rhythm, and the yarn flows through your fingers, and there's this lovely rhythm about it. And the same with crochet. So crochet I feel is a little bit more laid back than knitting, and you might not feel that at all. It's how I feel. The other thing with crochet is I don't really need to look at what I'm doing. I can feel what I'm doing, and I just need to glance down, which means that, if the lights are dim, like when I was on the aeroplane, we were flying at night time, and so it was dark, and I didn't need a lot of light, and I could still just do my simple stitches. Nothing fancy at all, just to kind of keep that mind focused and not thinking about kind of terrible things. So one of the things that I love about knitting and crochet and embroidery and making rag rugs and things like that is that there are endless possibilities to be creative. Now, of course, it's not in the least bit relaxing if you don't know what you're doing and you're just starting out. And I totally get that. And when I've taught crochet and knitting and embroidery and weaving to my students, there's always that kind of silence at the beginning when everyone is just learning the technique, and that might be where you are. And I have got a video that I did a long time ago on very basic sort of chain stitch and starting off with single and double and treble crochet. You might want to check that out. I might look at it. I might do an updated one. Let me know if you would like to have some very basic crochet lessons. There are some amazing crochet teachers and knitting teachers on YouTube, but if it's something that you think that you would like me to show you, then I'm very happy to do that. I like the freedom. I don't really like following a pattern. I like making up my own patterns. I like using the colours that are appealing to me at the time. So these colours, I really love these colours because they reminded me of the colours, the changing colours of the sea. That was kind of where I was going, but that was it. There was no other plan. I just wanted to keep those colours together. So all of these crafts, these yarn crafts are really interesting, I think, because they do make us sit down. And I've said before that as soon as I get my knitting and crochet out, my cats will appear because they know, this is going to be nice and warm. They're going to come and sit on my lap. And I think that they are underrated because they're mainly done by women and have done for generations. Although, of course, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, a lot of knitting was done by men because they made fishing nets and things like that. Now, where I live near, I live in Dorset, and I live near Bridport, and Bridport was famous for rope making. And there's a very good pub called the Rope Makers that does great live music. I have wandered off a bit, haven't I? But the museum in Bridport has this fantastic stuff about rope makers and men making nets for fishing and things like that. But over the years and the generations, it has been one of those crafts that women do. And it is changing, it is absolutely changing, Tom Daley doing his knitting at the Olympics and all of that kind of stuff. But that still is quite unusual. And I think one of the reasons why knitting and crochet are just seen as domestic craft is because of this. And you might have seen your grandmother knitting or your auntie knitting or your mum, and she may have been knitting jumpers and cardigans and scarves and hats and things like that. And we can take these sorts of things for granted, but it's not until you actually sit down and make one yourself that you realise the skill and the craft, the patience that it takes to actually create something like that. And I encourage everyone to give it a go. So if you're thinking that I can't do that, I tried learning it. My mum tried teaching me and I was rubbish. I really would encourage you to give it another go. Now, my sister is a very good knitter and she does crochet as well. I taught her how to crochet and we would have absolutely hilarious conversations about things going wrong. and kind of learning how to do various techniques and sharing techniques with each other. But we both have an absolute love of yarn, and so we will just share things. And this is the thing, isn't it? We share ideas with each other and think, oh, I really like that. That worked really well. Now, there are some knitters and crocheters who will follow a pattern religiously and produce something absolutely beautiful. But of course, it's not original, is it? Because you are following somebody else's pattern, and that's absolutely fine. And I've done that. I've done that loads of times. But there's something quite lovely about when we break away from somebody else's design and make it into your own. And that's what I used to do when I was teaching textiles. I would teach the techniques and the skills, and then I encourage them to do their own thing, which is what I do in my art classes, my art tutorials on YouTube. I teach the skills. What you then do with them is entirely up to you. So I would like you to take this away from tonight's Wednesday wandering, and to just think about yarn craft, whether it's knitting or crochet or weaving. I haven't really talked about embroidery. I think I'll do embroidery for another session because I think that needs a session all on its own. But have a think about it. If it's something that you would really like to learn, there are loads of ways that you can learn. If you would like me to do a tutorial, let me know. And if you are already someone who loves to knit and sew and weave, then let me know in the comments. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us how you started and how you feel when you pick up your crochet and then just start to stitch. So have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.